And Sarah, when you get a chance, if you could set me up to record, thank you.
All right, we've got everyone. Megan is not going to be joining us tonight. Sarah, you can hear me, right? Okay. Megan is not going to be joining us tonight, so Sarah Gold is here, David Harris is here, Emily Barron is here, and Sarah Fox is here. I will call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock, and I need to send Emily the YouTube link. Sorry about that, everyone. All right, there you go, Emily. We'll give Emily a moment to get that going on YouTube. Just having a little trouble getting YouTube going tonight. Sorry, everyone. All right, we are live on YouTube. Hopefully it is also streaming on the school committee webpage on the district webpage, correct, Emily? All right, so hopefully those are all working, but if not, it is on the YouTube for the Marblehead School Committee. All right, our first order of business is commendations. Does anybody have any commendations? All right,
I'll start.
Go ahead.
I'd like to just recognize once again, starting with Dr. Bucky and the administrative staff, and as well as all the principals, administrators, teachers, parents, tutors, everybody that have just allowed us to try and get back to a normal school year. It's been nothing but positive, the feedback that I've heard, and we certainly know there continues to be challenges, but if we think about where we were a year ago at this time, we're just so far ahead of last year. So thanks to everybody who continues to, make those efforts to keep us moving forward, to all of the teachers and coaches that are involved in extracurricular activities. The football team is out back on their winning ways. The field hockey team won a game 9-0 yesterday or the day before. And it's just great to see. So I just wanted to recognize, all of those efforts because we're so far ahead from last year. So thank you for that.
Thanks, David. Anybody else? All right, then we'll move on to our student representative, Yasin Cologne. Welcome, Yasin.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. MHS Open House will be a week from today on September 30th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. These past couple weeks, we also welcomed our exchange students and our new band teacher, Mr. Van Mortel. Class of 2025 elections will be happening September 29th. We also had Alice training on September 15th during our new magic blocks. And yesterday was also the club fair at MHS during our magic block. We had a lot of great clubs. A lot of people signed up. It was great. The first PCO meeting was September 13th. The North Shore Rovers, an organization that pairs volunteers with kids who have mental and physical disabilities, are visiting MHS this Saturday to do drills with the girls soccer team and talk about what it's like to play high school soccer. Our first home football game is this Friday since COVID against North Andover. So good luck to the football team. Football is 2-0, by the way. Girls soccer is 3-0, and field hockey is, I believe they won one, but since last I checked, 0-2-1. We also received information about day 0 on Wednesday, October 13th, which is, it will be an unnumbered day for the high school. Basically, grade 9 will participate in the annual day of service, which is a day of volunteer. Grades 10 and 11 will have the option of either taking the PSAT or participating in the day of service with the freshmen. And grade 12 will have various college prep, college visits, an essay writing program, and planning for the future in general. There is a Holocaust symposium for teens that begins October 13th and will be every Thursday from 3 to 4. College visits started last week for seniors and are still ongoing this week as well. The School Advisory Committee works with administrators, teachers, and students to discuss topics concerning the setting of Marblehead High School, and that will meet on Thursday at 3 beginning October 7th. I've been informed that the senior class is working on a fall event, and they have prom and a class trip in the works for the spring. They're trying to pack as much as they can in their last year because of COVID, so good for them for trying to pick up all the events they missed. And I also picked up some concerns from some students are upset about the removal of studies, and the juniors especially, because they will not get senior privilege, which is basically if they had a study last block, they would get to leave early. And students are also a little bit upset about the time change we had from 7:55 from 8 o'clock. The 5 minutes, they say, makes a big difference, both physically being there on time versus being tardy, and also mentally in preparation for school. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Yasin. I think you've given us a preview into a few of the things that Mr. Bauer is going to present on a little bit later in the meeting. And it's always good to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you.
a great night, everyone.
Sarah, did you have a question?
Yasin, how many exchange students do we have this year?
I am not sure. Why don't I get back to you on that one?
Okay, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's fine.
Always been a great program, and I'm just.
Yeah, I'm curious myself.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Yasin.
Yep.
All right, that will lead us on to public comment. If you would like to make public comment this evening, please use the raise hand function and I will call on you. It's a reminder to only speak for 3 minutes. And before you start speaking, please remember to state your full name and address for the record. All right, I think we're a little bit of a quiet group tonight, so there are no hands raised. So I will proceed forward into the superintendent's report. And speaking of Principal Bauer, I think he's up first. Dr. Bucky?
Yes, I've asked Mr. Bauer to give a preview of some of the stuff that's going on at the high school, much of which Yasin mentioned in his student update, and some information about some study groups that Mr. Bauer will be leading in looking at the high school schedule. And if we learned anything from the K-3 schedule, it's best to be out in front of this work. It's exciting work, it's important work, and I think it's be enlightening for the community or for the committee. Mr. Bauer.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me on. Yasin does a wonderful job, and Sarah, we have 9 exchange students, and we are looking to have 2 more come at the semester. And we had a nice little reception and plan to do more work integrating them into the community. So that was wonderful. So we do have some recognition to start with. We've received information regarding the National Merit semifinalists as well as commended students. We have 9 total, which is outstanding. And certainly any one of these 9 students would qualify for Principal of the Day program, but that's something we could talk about later. We have 3 students who are National Merit semifinalists, and we ask that they are able to tune in tonight or at a later time to see the recognition. We also have a certificate for them. We have Timothy Clay, Lawrence Earhart, and Jeffrey Letterman. Congratulations to our National Merit semifinalists. That's outstanding. And we also have 6 commended students. We have Alexis Earp, Julia Greenway, Ella Kramer, Grace Miller, Ann Sheridan, and Brooke Wager. So congratulations to all 9 students. They're outstanding, not only academically, but they're all involved in many different capacities within the high school. So they really epitomize the overall Marblehead spirit. So we're very proud of them. We have certificates that we will send along the way. And it's great to add into their college applications too, which is outstanding. The next piece of the updates really is more along the lines of college and career preparation and initiatives. And as you may note, we've actually done some work really under the guidance of Christine Tchaikovsky in terms of remodeling our what used to be the guidance suite. It is now the College and Career Center. They've set it up so that there are tables and chairs where small groups can gather. That's where the college visits are conducted now. So it's more of a professional setting. And then as we get into the pathway discussion, we anticipate having industry and other groups coming in to speak with and work with our students. So one thing that we've received from the state is an innovative pathway planning grant for the sum of $24,300. And we're very excited about this grant. This planning grant gives us a year to prepare to launch an innovative pathway. And the innovative pathways they're designed to create strong partnerships with employers, but also provide opportunities to align curriculum to best prepare students for success after graduation. And there's 5 pathways that the state offers: information technology, engineering, healthcare, life sciences, and advanced manufacturing. So we've selected for the planning purposes advanced manufacturing. The reason we did that is through our research, a number of our courses do align to a pathway that will make the work a little bit easier. For example, we have CAD programming, we have an engineering class that we've now converted to full year, but there's also opportunities that will be provided in terms of our shop work. They received recently a CNC machine, which can be programmed to make and provide all sorts of different items. But the planning will take place. The grant provides PD for a team of teachers that can map out what the curriculum will look like. And we know that there will be some adjustments, and we're also able to bring a consultant in. And we have been, and I have to give credit to Mr. Scott Solberg. I don't know if he's on the call tonight, but he's provided a lot of guidance in this area and his expertise. And we look forward to continue to work with Scott as well. A big part of this piece, though, is providing an application for the grant. It's 2 parts. Part 1 is due October 29th. We've received a letter of support from Mass Hire, which is critical. That's a piece that provides the employment connection. One thing that through the pathway program is having the capstone, the opportunity to have an internship, and we already have that built in. So we've met with the Marblehead Chamber of Commerce, the president, recently, just to look for more opportunities and connections. And Lori Ford, our staff members, assisting us with those community connections. Part 2 is due in February, and by mid-March to late March, the state will let us know if we actually will receive designation for a pathway. We've started with 1, and we hope the implementation will go well to provide opportunities for students and look to add as time moves on. And you can qualify for the planning grant each year. But also an essential part of the pathways is to provide MyCap planning and to actually develop the MyCap plan, which we are doing right now. So it's running concurrently. So the planning grant also provides professional development monies for that to be developed. And the MyCap is my career and academic plan, which personalizes and creates an opportunities for our students to really hone in on their interests, skills, and talents to provide more of a streamlined pathway as they enter high school and throughout their 4 years at the high school. involving and understanding career and possibly development opportunities. And that aligns with the pathways that has to happen one and the same. So Christine Tchaikovsky is leading that charge along with our school counseling department, but that also we're bringing in other members of the staff because it really is a mind shift to align opportunities that should be woven throughout the fabric of our school. So we're very excited about the planning grant and really being able to offer opportunities for our students. So I'll keep you updated as we progress along this way. Next along the lines is the After Dark program, which I don't know how much you may know about this, but it's the partnership with Essex Tech. We have 4 students enrolled and we offered this last spring. So the students receive core academics at our school in the morning and they bus over to Essex Tech in the afternoon. And there are different programs that they can take advantage of, such as advanced manufacturing, auto collision repair, refinishing, automotive technology, construction, design and media communications, electrical plumbing. So they receive all that in the afternoon, which is great. So at the end of the day, this is for juniors and it's slated for juniors. So their last 2 years of high school, they can take advantage of this, but they'll receive over 900 hours of technical training and opportunities to learn about industries and receive credentials at the end of that. So we're very pleased with that. The 4 students have reported it's been very successful. And we're doing everything we can to support them. So my hat is off to them and they're looking forward to promoting it for the next group next year. So that's outstanding. The next piece that Yasin mentioned is Day Zero, which we're very excited to bring to the forefront. And this is connected to college and career planning. So we're offering 3 parts. For our seniors, we're offering them the opportunity for college preparation. So they can take that day for a college visit. We'll have a Google form that they'll fill out. So they're accounted for where we have that connection for them. Also for those that do not choose that option, they can work at the high school on college essays, Common App boot camp, and more secondary preparation, post-secondary preparation. So we're very excited about being able to offer that. We've seen models of that before, and that actually is timely for our seniors who I know it's been a real struggle for them coming out of COVID and having opportunities to visit colleges. And I know families are really strapped to get that done. So that tying in with that longer weekend with Indigenous Peoples Day, that weekend will work well. So we're looking forward to that. Secondly, for grades 10 and 11, we have the PSAT test and we expect that our students take that test. It's really not as much of an option in the sense there is an opt-out for that, but we're really very excited about this. We've researched this for several years. A number of schools offer this testing during the day, and I think it's very important. So the national merit finalists, semifinalists, and the commended students all come out of the PSAT piece as juniors. So being able to offer that during the school day, we know for that group will provide lots of convenience because we know that the weekends are difficult, spacing. So having it done during that time will be advantageous for our students. The price is a little bit lower because we have it built in with our staff that will be assisting the administration of the test. And for sophomores, we want them to take the test too, because this is optimal for preparation for standardized testing as they start to get their mind around and having preparation and practice for that piece. Although some schools may have gone away from standardized testing, that's still a big piece of the process. And as we're looking into our data and looking into our opportunity gap, not necessarily achievement gap, but the opportunity gap, we want to make sure our students have opportunities to have, when they make the move, if they're taking the standardized test, that it's not the first time in their senior year. So we want to make this easy and work well. Plus the resources that are available to students during the day from College Board, it really will help them. I believe they'll be able to have a lot of the information on the site and as well as follow up with our school counseling department. So we're very excited about that. We have that set up through my school bucks in terms of the payment. We're making this easy for our students. Yes, there is an opt-out option where they could then work on the day of service, but we want our students to take advantage of this great opportunity. So we're very pleased by that. And then last, our grade 9 students will take the day for the day of service, which was a very successful program that we had to discontinue during COVID and we're bringing back. So that's a partnership that we have with a number of entities throughout the town. We'll send student groups to some of our schools. The fire department is offering to take a group, the police department this year, which is outstanding. The COA We have beach cleanups. We've coordinated with Andrew Petty, Goldthwaite, the bike trails. It's a really great opportunities. Magic Hat, we'll be working with Spur. So that's really a nice opportunity and a way to set the tone for our first year students in terms of giving back to the community. We'll finish the day with lunch in the last 2 blocks, and we're still determining what those blocks will be. So we're very excited about that. And then last but not least is, yes, the piece that I know that the news is coming out in terms of the elimination of study halls. So that, yes, that will happen in school year 2022-23. So working with Dr. Bucky last spring and through our discussions and understanding that the time on learning piece and study halls, and the piece of directed studies, really what we're offering are not directed studies. And therefore, in terms of the time on learning piece, is not where it should be. And there are a number of other factors too that go into this as well in terms of being able to function as a school in the way that best serves all of our students. And we're finding that as we go through this and do our research, we have formed a committee that will be able to work through this. So this isn't, I wanted to do the announcement tonight publicly at school committee, and we will follow up with communication with our students and with our families. But this is a process. We've established a committee to review this, and we actually started work last spring at the end of the school year, putting together a timeline how this will work. So we know coming up, the end time for us will be right around the time we usually propose the program of studies and start the scheduling process. Because ultimately, when you look at our schedule and by removing study halls, that in itself will have to be a review of where we are with our schedule. Can our schedule stand up to that shift and that change? So as we know, whenever you involve one piece of the schedule, which study halls are, there certainly could be some residual effects that impact the whole schedule. And we need to make sure that everything we do supports providing the best opportunities for our students. So in terms of the review committee, it's a number of prongs. Right now, we're looking to basically do a needs analysis with the school. We've already sent out and starting to work on the analysis of the survey with our staff. We have a survey that will go out to our students next week, and we'll be asking students if they're interested in forming focus groups and working with us. And as you send out surveys, it's not a one and done. There's always the analysis of the information, then taking that as you drill down to go further. Because at this point, our task with the committee is the elimination of study halls. But we also know that it's not just going to be that. We know that there will be other pieces that we need to put together, and where that will be, we want the data and the needs of our school to lead that charge. And that's really, really important. So once we go through the piece where we do the needs analysis, and we will involve parents, there'll be information shared with parents as well, and families and guardians, the analysis piece. And then once we start to take in like what's best for our school, we'll start to piece this together and formulate recommendations. Then therefore we'll do research on that, receive feedback from that. So what might that look like if there indeed is any change with any scheduling or credits required and electives and all that will have to come into play. That'll be vetted through and ultimately bringing it to a recommendation. Our timeline is February for that. So there's a lot of work to do. I'm very proud of our committee. We have members from each department represented. We met today, again, to start our analysis of the staff survey and follow up and planning the launch of the student survey next week. So we're excited. We've also, we wanted to make sure going into this too, that we've been able to communicate and talk with others that have gone through this process. So that way we understand the timeline, but also the unique needs of Marblehead High School. And obviously one of the pieces that is coming into play is the Magic Block that has been launched as our pilot this year. We've done a lot of research on that, and Lindsay Donaldson and Alicia Dolan received lots of credit for their group a couple of years ago that researched the various high schools to provide an opportunity for students to work together through advisory programming. And as that is being launched, and as we're going through that piece, that's running concurrently with our review committee as well. So as we move along in this piece, obviously I understand and we understand that if something is taken away, there has to be an understanding of what the school needs to make sure that, again, the needs are met. And understanding the social emotional learning needs of all of our students is loud and clear within our, coming out of COVID, but even before that, and being able to provide opportunities for our students during the day that they can make adult connections, which is very important to their school, but also have opportunities that can move throughout the school at the same time, can prove advantageous as well. So we have lots of work to do, but we've started that work. And I did want to announce that, tonight, and certainly appreciate having the time to do so, but look forward to more work coming our way.
Thanks, Dan. We always appreciate when you come, and all of this information is great information, and absolutely appreciate that you're kind of letting us know what work is going on in terms of the study hall removal, because that's a big one. So I'll open it to the committee. Sarah, I know you had your hand up.
Yes, a lot of good information was presented, Dan. Thank you. As far as the Innovative Pathways grant and the MyCap plan, is that something that you foresee needing to work in somehow to future budgets, and just so we can have that on our radar and make sure that we're setting you up for setting that plan up for that grant program up for success, that we can make sure we're carrying on and doing the good work that we need to do in the future for that?
Well, this time, as we plan it through, Sarah, I think there are a couple of components as well. So there's also another piece of grant monies that are available. So if there's any equipment that is needed, there's a large amount of grant money that is available for that. And we may qualify for some of that. So with that being said, a lot of this work takes place with looking at our current curriculum, do the entry-level classes match what is needed for the pathway, as well as advanced coursework too. That's a big piece of this too, because we're pushing along the college and career readiness, but that advanced coursework and then ultimately the internship. So at this time, it's too soon to know where we'll need, if there's any financial needs within the budget piece. But this grant money does allow us to do this work and be able to provide this as well. So, but we'll keep you abreast of that.
This work could potentially show us some areas where we may want to expand our course catalog and or staff any particular courses that may benefit us. Is that fair or no?
Well, it's too soon to determine that, Sarah, because ultimately there could be a consolidation of a couple of course areas that may come into play. And obviously and this will actually help us with our STEAM program. We have a number of different courses we're looking to unify. And at this point, I think it's premature to see if that would add courses. It may actually streamline, and some schools have expressed that when we've talked to them, that might be the case. But that's a fair question.
Okay. And then as far as the study halls go, my assumption is when we have a study hall, we can probably have some higher ratios, because it's whatever staff we can plug in there doesn't need to be teaching whatever all those various kids are working on. Not to oversimplify it, but do you foresee possibly the reduction of study halls creating, you're going to have to do something with those students during those new periods, possibly creating the addition of some staffing hours, or no?
Again, not necessarily. I think,
okay.
And again, it's too premature to get in front of the research piece and the needs analysis, because at the end of the day, this may allow us to do some streamlining in terms of what we offer, but it's really too soon to tell, because we want to make sure that whatever we have supports moving forward. But yeah.
And is that program or the group that's looking at the study halls is there any potential to kind of explore additional opportunities for dual enrollment?
That's not the charge of this particular committee, but I know that we've talked about that piece, and certainly the MyCap and the Innovative Pathways do provide certainly some dual enrollment opportunities, because particularly with the pathways, when you get to the upper level courses, oftentimes there may be a partnership. North Shore is a common partner for that, as well as Salem State could be a potential partner, although we don't have a true dual enrollment where the tuition is waived. But working into this is certainly, it's advantageous to have the pathways. It gives us leverage to work in that direction.
Is there any potential to negotiate the tuition waiving? And you don't need to answer me now, because I kind of went off on a tangent, but is that something like, I would hope maybe moving forward, we can kind of look at that a little bit. If there are some partnerships to be made where I know we take fellows from certain programs and things like that. Could we potentially glean some dual enrollment tuition waivers from that?
Again, Sarah, on that piece too, as we know, as they move forward and they basically went to prioritize where their monies would go to districts, they felt, again, this was a decision that was well out of our hands in terms of where they felt the need would be. And I remember having some discussions with Salem State about that piece. But ideally, we have communicated with North Shore because we know coming into this, there could be some opportunities, but we're always looking for anything we can. So our eyes are definitely open for any potential partnerships and opportunities for sure.
Thank you. I know I threw a bunch of different things there. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Emily and David, do either of you have any questions? No. Dan, I've got one in just thinking about how oftentimes students utilize the study hall and why they might be missing it. And as Yasin suggested, or upset that it's going to go away because of homework and then after school extracurriculars and sports and all of that. Has any work been done on how that's going to be addressed? Because there's definitely social emotional components to that, students feeling overwhelmed, and how that's going to sort of be handled.
Well, that's the start of the work, Sarah, is that, and part of the student survey is really digging down into deep in terms of their needs. What do they need and what do they want, as well as working with our staff in terms of that piece too. And certainly, and having, again, the magic block could be the answer. It may or may not be. We don't know. So as we're working through this, as you know, students that do not sign up for a magic block opportunity, they are able to work with the teacher, which is outstanding. And I think having the opportunity at the same time, because oftentimes we're just trying to find out, like, what do students actually use the studies for? Because that data itself will help us gear our, drive our work. So that way we could figure out and work with how this best will fit. So schools that have implemented a win block or, we call it magic because of a lot of different reasons, right? We're obviously the magicians, the U block, what have you. Schools that we've spoken with, they utilize that. So the school at the same time, students have resources that they may not have at a study, because at a study, if you want to work with the teacher, they may be teaching a class, right? Or if you need to make up a test, you can only do that after school. But if you are, if you have a math team meet that day, or if you have a drama rehearsal or a practice, obviously your academics is first and foremost, but certainly that's stressful as I understand. And so that piece, as we've talked with schools, they've been able to work that piece, the needs of their students through. And I think that's where it's really important. So the survey that's going to come out on Wednesday, and again, that's the first of more research, but we're going to ask, how they use that time and how they see that working is so important, because we want to be able to support our students. But remember, we're a comprehensive high school too. So we do know that in terms of, and you all know that the electives have been up and down, right? We've gone back and forth, and we've seen in some areas where we've had to do some reductions because just the way things move. And so we're looking at that as well as we're working on this too, because studies do impact that at different times, right? And the amount of credits that we actually we say we'll schedule for the year. We know there's room in the schedule where students can be in classes where they should be, but also being able to offer something. So again, I go back to saying, we know if something is being taken back, we know that we need to be mindful in terms of how we construct to serve the needs. And I think that's a very valid question and valid point, because I don't want the students to get lost in this, or our staff, as we do this work. I think that's really important.
And that magic block, I just want to highlight, because we voted to fund that a couple of years ago. The work that the teachers did to really take that old advisory block and make it something worthwhile and useful and advantageous to students in their day. So it's great to hear how that work has come together. I know, being on the SAC for the high school, that it was paused last year, and that was disappointing to a lot who had worked so hard the year before. But I'm glad to hear how that's kind of come to life and been moved forward.
Yeah, I'm very excited, and certainly the addition of the MyFlex, which allows the integration into Aspen for attendance purposes. We're still working out some of the rough edges, but that in itself. So we had the magic block in conjunction with the activity fair. So that wasn't very smart on my part, because Dr. Bucky came over and saw we had 33 different tables and kids all over the place, but it worked pretty well off the first go. There are glitches in it for sure. And Lindsay and Alicia are really adjusting, and they really have taken the lead on that. So I'm grateful for the support provided to continue that work with that group, because ultimately that's going to pay dividends down the road.
Great. I know my son enjoyed the activity fair the other day. And just to kind of highlight where this work is stemming from, like this, as I talked with Dr. Bucky about this, and just so I'm understanding correctly, this is work that we're kind of behind on. Like this should have been done a long time ago with ed reform and everything that came of that. So this is work that needs to be done and is really important as we look to make our district as successful as possible.
Yes, indeed. And certainly, you know, and that's the piece that comes into it, is we have a very successful high school, highly successful high school. And we're proud of the work that has been done by our staff and our students and our community support. But, you know, obviously the evaluation and moving forward is the answer is yes, we need to move in this direction. But again, I'm grateful that we have the year to really do this in a thoughtful way that will provide, again, the best supports. And you're right, if you look around, other districts have done this work many years ago as well. But again, so, you know, when we say that, yes, the purpose is that we need to get moving again. And I think we can take our school to another level.
Yeah, I mean, highlight the fact that last year in Boston Magazine, we were 29th, this year 19th with the high school. And I think the collective comment was, all right, next year, let's be 9th. So this is the type of work that'll get us there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Dr. Bucky?
Thanks, Dan. That was a great presentation and you covered a lot of important topics. So I'm going to move into the memo that I sent to school committee that outlined some of the things that you have been asking about. Starts with the dashboard. We're using the dashboard this year on the website. Thank you to Stephen Quietek, who built that in a day. Based on another local district's model. I think it gives families more real-time information about COVID-19 cases than the letters were able to do last year. People that have questions or concerns, and it's understandable because we had over 200 families that were fully remote last year. And so they're very sensitive to COVID numbers in the district. And so people have reached out to Joseph Griffin and I think really come away from those conversations feeling a lot better about COVID mitigation protocols and where we are. So that's update on the dashboard. In line with that, some of you have asked me about staff vaccination rates. I want to thank the principals for putting out a quick one question survey. We worked with MEA and they said, keep it simple. So it was a one question survey. Are you vaccinated? Are you not? I'm really impressed by the response rate that we got across the schools, and that's in the memo for you. And then the percent vaccinated rate among our staff is also equally as impressive. Student vaccination rate, certainly the mass.gov site will give you that information by community. But we know that not all of our students in Marblehead go to Marblehead Veterans Middle School or Marblehead High School. Some go to Essex Tech, some go to the charter, some go to independent schools. So what we are doing, Deanna put out an email to the middle school and the high school today to start collecting the vaccination cards, just like we would for other immunizations and physicals each year, so that we have a specific information number for the middle school and the high school. My guess is, based on the mass.gov information, we're going to see high vaccination rates among our students. There was some question about ARPA funds. There had been one meeting prior to the budget subcommittee meeting that was held this past Tuesday. There have been no projects identified, no projects funded. We did have another meeting after the budget subcommittee meeting this week. So the town manager is going to be putting out information to department heads and doing some community outreach, but we are certainly at the table and advocating for ARPA funds as they might pertain to the public school system. And then we have coffee and conversation with the superintendent tomorrow in what I think is going to be a tsunami. We're supposed to be under the tent at the high school, but I think it is calling for inclement weather. But I will be there with Mr. Kelleher's coffee cart, and anybody that would like to come out and hear about the work of the district or to engage in conversation about our schools, I welcome that opportunity. And then last but not least, which was not on the memo, but I just think it's worthy of bringing to school committee, building principals are addressing this, and you've probably seen it on the news, a TikTok challenge that is encouraging students to vandalize their school's bathrooms. And unfortunately, that has hit Marblehead. It has happened at Village, it has happened at Vets, and it has happened at the high school. And so because it's across 3 schools, I just wanted to bring it to school committee's attention, and to also bring it to the community and parents' attention so that they can have conversations with students, because bathroom fixtures, tearing off paper towel dispensers, clogging up the plumbing, stealing bathroom signs is vandalism. And certainly if you are identified as engaging in that behavior, there will be the restitution piece, but it's also inappropriate activity. So unfortunately, it's a social media trend right now. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention. I will pause here for questions on that piece before jumping into project or planning for success and my goals.
Any questions for John? Sarah?
I have a few questions about the COVID, but just really quickly, because I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not even familiar with the TikTok world.
I could tell by your reaction.
Luckily, my kids aren't there yet. But is there a way through this app to identify who the kids are that are doing this? I mean, I would assume that it's like Facebook, that kind of makes me old, but and says their name of who's doing it. Sarah's laughing at me. I really have no idea, but is there a way to identify who's doing this?
That's a great question, Sarah. And it's part of the education piece, is letting students know that there is nothing online that is anonymous. And so while it might not initially be able to identify, there are ways to prove the identity of someone in doing this. And certainly students are savvy and how posts and how social media. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a TikTok person, so I'm not entirely sure how TikTok operates. But yes, that's part of the education piece that schools are putting out, is the identity and the potential damage it can do for students and their futures.
Yeah. Because the bottom line is every penny we have to pay to fix these things is a penny less we pay to educate kids. So
precisely,
it's just, yeah, this could be a big problem. Circling back to the COVID testing and things like that, I want to make sure, because there has, people have contacted me, and I think there's some questions in the community. We're not starting the plan is to officially start the pool testing, correct, on October 4th. However, your memo today made it look like we're going to do our best to start some version of that prior, until we get the full program up and running. And hopefully that program, the initial piece, will maybe start at the beginning of next week, John?
Yes, we are going to do the same version that we did last year for the random COVID safety checks in the small scale version that we had. We are doing test and stay currently and symptomatic testing, but certainly this is another sad example of where the state overpromised and underdelivered. The CIC Health is completely underwater and overwhelmed, and so the support that we were offered is not there. But I did meet with Joseph this afternoon and ask that we start doing what we had available to us last year. Part of the issue is that we didn't do large scale testing last year, so we didn't get some of the supplies and equipment that other districts had in-house that are able to be more functional with it at this time.
And I don't think we can overemphasize enough that these programs are one group. It's not a menu. Test and stay is probably the one that appeals to the most people. So use that as our selling feature. If you want to be part of test and stay, you need to be part of it all. And so we need to really get our enrollment up in that, because the more people enrolled, the more successful the program is, which essentially keeps kids safely in school and uninterrupted with their in-person learning. That's the best way to do it, is this test and stay, all these programs.
Yes.
So that was just like a little marketing pitch for that. And then
can I jump in and mark it a little bit harder? Because Tower has 97% participation rate, so I want to see us get there. I don't know if that's possible, but I want to try. So they do theirs on Tuesday mornings. All of the vials of the tests were handed in within 11 minutes after the first bell. So this is a really fast thing. It's happening there in classrooms super easily. I was a part of it last week and this week, and it's just smooth. And it isn't kids who aren't participating aren't made to feel like they're being left out. It just is sort of the teacher calls the kid up and they do their little swab, and that's the end of it. So it really, it's not invasive. It's super easy, and like you said, Sarah, it would be really, really helpful in just understanding how COVID is impacting our schools and how we can best serve our students within all of this. Thanks for letting me interrupt.
No, it really is the best way to protect the sanctity of in-person learning, really. So that was one piece. And then just for some clarification on the symptomatic testing, I know that there's all these charts of what is the top tier, if you will, symptoms, and there's lower tier. If a child is ill enough to be sent home, are we testing them? I guess is my most basic question. If you're sick enough to go home, can we just test them so then we're getting ahead of any positives and not waiting for the parents to come back when they send the kid back a day or 2 or 3 days later?
I don't want to misspeak, so I'm going to ask you to ask Deanna or Joseph that question because it's nuanced at each school. And I wouldn't want to say that we are doing this and for a parent listening to say, but my child got sent home and didn't get tested.
Okay. No, I'll reach out to them. And then we had talked to John and I earlier in the week. I think we're going to have every classroom teacher, or at least at the lower levels where you get classroom teacher emails, push the whole sign up for the test thing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's really where it's incredibly important, because that's our unvaccinated population, and that's our population that is going to have to test and stay and or go into quarantine and be out of school. So that's where that push needs to happen, in my opinion.
Is there any talk at the state level, either in the superintendent's group or even from DESE, about not just a survey, but the requirement of having people give us information of whether they're vaccinated or not, just like we would with measles or anything else?
Not for students right now, but it is in some districts a condition of employment for staff.
So I think John answered this question that we're starting to at the very beginning stages of starting to collect the data on students, because one of the pieces, and that's what I was going to ask him to do within this meeting, is because the way that it's broken down is we've got the 12 to 15-year-olds and then the 16 to 19-year-olds. Well, we don't have a whole lot of 19-year-olds, especially at this point in the year in our high school. And then that 14, 15-year-old bridges in between the middle school into the high school. So I don't know what the current numbers are. I think a few weeks ago we had 83% for that 12 to 15-year-olds, which then greater than 90 for the 16 and 19. So it makes me actually a little bit antsy for the vets, because if we think that as kids get younger, which I think this is how it's tending to be, as kids get younger, they're vaccinated less, that for me, the 83%, if we pull out those 14 and 15-year-olds, we actually could drop below. And maybe we're greater than 83%. Again, it's gone up. Okay, that's great. So I think just understanding for us as a committee, as we move towards October 1st, and who knows what DESE is going to do, but understanding where our buildings are at and what that means in reality for Marblehead is really important. So I'm glad that we're getting on top of that and starting to move that along.
And then we're all anticipating the vaccine to be ready for the next age group, that 5 to 12, within a few weeks, hopefully. Sorry, there's like something flying. We had the windows open. Are we in talks, or are we ready to roll with a vaccination clinic the way we previously did? Because I think that there will be hopefully a large population of people that want to get this in play.
Absolutely. Yes.
Any other questions for John on this? All right.
Moving right along to our planning for success. I am super proud of what we accomplished, the 26 members of the planning team, the scores of community members that had the opportunity to participate in this, and particularly proud of the PFS liaison that worked with our district, Ruth Gilbert. She has done this across the Commonwealth with many schools, and she really was impressed by the level of commitment in Marblehead, by the stakeholder input, and by the final product that we were able to accomplish. And so I want to thank all 26 members of the planning team. The mission, the vision, the core values remained relatively the same. There were some nuance, language changes. The theory of action is just taking all of the work that we did and putting it into that if-then. So if we're able to do what we want to do through this plan, then the Marblehead Public Schools will look like this in 2026. And so we identified 4 focus areas for district improvement. Those will be teaching and learning, professional culture, diversity, equity, and inclusion, technology, and facilities and operations. Under each of those, and this document will be available on the website tomorrow and will go out in the superintendent's update, are the strategic objectives that we want to accomplish in each of these focus areas, and then the initiatives we want to undertake. And in bold are the initiatives that we have identified for the coming year that we think that we can accomplish by June of 2021 at the end, or 2022 at the end of this year. And so the next step, I have asked district leaders to take a focus area. So Nan will be leading teaching and learning. I'm going to lead professional culture because that is a residual focus area from the last strategic plan. Diversity, equity, and inclusion will be led by our METCO director, Deandra. Stephen Quietek will lead technology, and Michelle will head up facilities and operations. My goal is to have these regularly reported out to school committee. So maybe one meeting a month, having a focus area that you can ask questions about, hear about the progress. People will be taking these initiatives that we believe we can accomplish this year and creating action plans around them. So they'll be putting smaller subcommittees and work groups together to work on these, and all of them will have budget implications. And so as we prepare the FY23 budget, this will be a guiding document. So these initiatives that we're undertaking, not just this year, but in the next 5 years, and the implications they will have for the budget. I do want to clarify that as people read it and look at strategic initiatives and say, well, why aren't you working on that now? Why are you picking that? All of this is fluid. These are the things that we believe that we can accomplish in this year, but not at the sake of other initiatives that are listed. Sometimes there's crossover. And so even though it's not bolded, doesn't mean that we won't be attending to it or working to achieve that. But the ones that are in bold, we think can be accomplished this year. And so in terms of benchmarks for the school committee, those regular reporting out, and then through the budget process, how those align as well. So it's an impressive document. It's an ambitious document. And I think Ruth has said that to me a dozen times, that it is very ambitious, but I think Marblehead Public Schools is an ambitious system. And I look forward to the outcomes that are listed on the final page of the document, and for in 2026, all of us to be celebrating these milestones together. So I'm open for questions on planning for success.
All right, and this is up on our meeting materials, correct? Yep, currently. So if anybody wants to access it tonight before it comes out in other venues tomorrow. Sarah, I saw your hand up.
So there's a couple things. And 1.6, and I know for people who might not have the reference point, it is up online. Can we just put that really important clarifying word of implement free? I want the word free in there. Full day kindergarten program, because we have a full day program, we just pay for it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that was a big one. And then I know like the communities like really interchange the words from planning for success to strategic plan. I just want to be really clear. This is not a strategic plan. This is a high level plan of where we want to take our district, but it's not like when you think of a strategic plan, like the line items of we've checked this box, we've checked this box, this one will be done by this date with this much money. So they are two different things. So where people kind of are interchanging them. Do you feel this has what you need for, you know, the big word we all talk about every year is an override. If we get to the point where we need an override, now we all have varying feelings on where we think we are in that. And I don't want to go down that debate right now, but do you feel you have what you need to do that? If that is what is the will of the committee, dependent on, you know, what we decided as a district?
I think that this document represents the will of the community, that these are the priorities that the community of Marblehead would like to see the public schools accomplish. And many of these things have budgetary implications. And so as we build the budget and we are looking at what these initiatives will cost next year and over time, I think that we have what we need to make the case for achieving them.
Okay.
And thank you, Sarah, for participating in this process.
No problem.
David or Emily, any questions on this? And this is something we'll have like the week to digest it, and then we'll come back and I believe we vote this, correct?
You do. Thank you for that clarification. I meant to say that at the beginning, that this is being presented to you this evening for you to digest. And at our next meeting, if there are questions before it's voted, you'll have an opportunity to.
I really appreciate that you said that each category or each initiative will come and present to us periodically. I think that'll be extremely helpful because you look at this and it's like, whoa.
Yes.
But when getting updates, I think that'll be great. So thanks.
I just keep coming back to when Glenn Kuchar spoke with us at our retreat over the summer about how the school committee really sets the tone for the district, and how, you know, it's, as we look this over, it's hard to think like, oh, we're going to have to wait, you know, for some of these until 2026. You know, these are all really, really important things and things that have been identified. And quite frankly, many of them have been identified for years at this point. So we're all kind of chomping at the bit. But I think it's important that we just all remember that, you know, we're in a process, and that if we could accomplish all of these in 1 year, we would, but we can't. And so these things are going to build on one another and, you know, move the district forward, kind of as we were talking about with Dan earlier, in really positive ways. But, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. And so we've got to sometimes, you know, sit back and just do the work, you know, put our heads down and do the work. So it's exciting.
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm unmuted. So yeah, once again, I'd like to thank everybody who participated. Once again, as Dr. Bucky mentioned, the 26 members. And I remember when we first talked about this, I think it was back in May, maybe April. And we were thinking, wow, this is really ambitious. Vaccinations were just coming out. We were trying to wrap up on school, weren't really sure where we were going. And it really was ambitious, Dr. Bucky. So thank you for undertaking it. Thank you for everybody who committed themselves to this and participated in pulling this together. I know you met underneath tents, outdoors to pull this all together. And at the same time, while all the planning was going on in the summer to reopen the schools and try and get us back to some sort of sense of normalcy. But this whole program was going on. All the planning that takes place in the summer to reopen schools, hiring and staffing. So I really look forward to digging deeper into this, but thank you for all your efforts and for our liaison who supported this. So much appreciated.
That's a nice setup, David, for, I was reading another Planning for Success plan, and they said, the public school system has engaged this process over the last 2 years, Marblehead did it in 6 months. So that's another reason that I'm proud of what we were able to accomplish in such a compact period of time. And I do think that it will be a good roadmap for the future for the district. Would you like me to move into my goals?
I think so. Yes, I think you can.
Okay, so I have established 4 goals for the year, 2 district improvement goals, a professional practice goal, and student learning. I will say that I used my evaluation that the committee provided me last spring as kind of a framework, and then the educator evaluation tool, the superintendent's evaluation tool, and some of the areas that you identified in my evaluation to form these goals. And so I tried to, for ease of when we get to the evaluation next year, align those initiatives or those objectives in the rubric so that you can compare the rubric against the work that I set out to do. So the first one is visibility in communication, and I have listed action items that I'm going to undertake this year, some estimated timelines for doing them, and then anticipated outcomes and evidence. And certainly I'll do a mid-year update on this. The second goal for me is the equity goal. And again, I've done some action items, estimated timeline, and the anticipated outcomes for that. These are all posted for members of the public that are wondering what I'm talking about. And again, I tried to align the standards and indicators from the rubric for the ease of the committee and looking at the goal against the rubric. The third goal that I've set is the curriculum alignment, MTSS, and educator evaluation. And I also use planning for success when doing the establishments of my goals, because that is an important thing and it should guide the work that I'm doing in the district. And so the final goal that I have is the student learning goal and attending to the social, emotional, and behavioral health needs through the MTSS work. And again, a lot of these things are contained within planning for success. And I'm not going to read through each of the goals and the initiatives. I'm setting them out tonight for you to hear the goals and my thinking behind them. And then at our next meeting, if we want to have a question, or if you want to give feedback on the goals before voting them, we can do that.
So I'll highlight too that so I took a continuing ed from MASC and DEFI last Friday on superintendent evaluations. It was a webinar, and that was one of the pieces that they highlighted in there was the idea that as a superintendent sets their goals, that we pick out, which standard it applies to, and then how, the other pieces that we're looking at, that when we go to evaluate, that we had kind of set up last spring when we went to evaluate, John, that we would have that at this point. And I had sat down to do that the other night to be able to present that to the committee, but John had already beat me to that and had all of that on there. So this will also then help guide our agendas for the year too, because when we have something to talk about that pertains to these goals, that then we'll be able to put on the agenda so that when we get back to the evaluation, that we can then kind of use our agendas to help reference as well. So I know that that's been done in the past, and that was definitely something that would be helpful as we look at things in the spring.
Or at the same time, or at the same time, maybe we could use this document to track what school committee meetings we have these items on the agenda.
Yep.
Not have to go back to the agenda items to, see which items we tracked, maybe as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
What I liked during one of the pieces we looked at during, it wasn't a webinar, but it was a training video on superintendent evaluation, was how some superintendents said that for every meeting and every presentation they made, at some point, like whether it was their last slide or somewhere, they talked about this aligns with goal 1.2 or however we're labeling them. I think it would be really helpful as we go through the year to do that. So we have those data points, and it's not as hard at the end to do that evaluation. That was one thing. And then, are you open to discussion on any of these, or a request to I mean, I don't want to add another one because 4 goals is a lot of goals, is I think sufficient. I think 5 would be too much. I would like to see a budget goal, just where at the end of last year, you were really honest about the fact that because of COVID and the influx of money that came in with all the different ESSER and different acronym grants, that you weren't able to really dig into a typical what's coming in, what's going out. And although we do still have the ESSER 3 grant, I think it's going to be more of a typical finance year this year. If we could possibly add that piece in, because, budget is such an important piece in every district, but I think particularly where we are in Marblehead right now, where we're trying to kind of figure out where we are with a zero-based budget.
It's actually under goal number 2. It talks about the budget.
I saw that, but it wasn't like it as a piece of the professional practice piece. Whereas last year, like the budget, it was a main goal in and of itself. So I was hoping just to see it as another main goal if possible. Just thought we could, I'd put it out there. John could give it some thought, and then maybe we can discuss at the next meeting or take it from there.
Certainly, I did know that budget would be an important piece based on the evaluation from last year, and I tried to weave that in along with planning for success. But if there are other initiative areas, or if the committee's will is for me to establish a sub-separate goal, I'm certainly open to that conversation.
Thanks, John. Emily, did you have a question or a comment?
So at some point, I don't remember exactly when I heard this, but they had talked about the evaluation process. And if instead of just coming to us at the midpoint of the year to talk to us about the goals, maybe do it like quarterly, if that gets us, or however, like just a little bit more often so that it's fresh in our head, kind of going throughout the year, if that works.
Yeah, I think it will. And if we can align on the agendas, what goal it pertains to.
I mean, that'll help a lot too. So yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was said on this webinar as well. And it sort of seemed to flow in, is that if you sort of front load this work and have everything set up so that we know what we're looking for, that it becomes a lot easier to do much more regular check-ins throughout the year, so that it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, we're looking back at the entire year and it's overwhelming.
And then Sarah, can you just, in the back of your head, keep in mind, maybe making it an agenda item, I don't know, maybe February, to not just talk about, John, where John is with his goals, but reconvene as a group of how we foresee maybe improving the evaluation process on our end, and how that might go more smoothly. And one of the pieces I know I'd like to see is, I know John did a 360 review last year where he has some really important professional district improvement goals here that really had to do with leadership and all that. I'd like to see the results of a 360, like an anonymous 360 review, and from the admin team or even the whole staff. I think that would be really helpful for identifying, some success points and any possible areas that we might want to make goals or moving forward.
Yeah, I noted that, and Lisa and I kind of keep a running list of agenda items and when we should be looking at them. And I'll ask Dorothy for some ideas on how other districts are doing that type of thing. All right. Any other questions on that? Great. So as we mentioned, go ahead.
I mean, I think one of the things about it is, you're right, when we get to the year end and we're charged with doing the evaluation, but I think we all recognize, and especially when you see Dr. Bucky's goals, there's just no possible way to report out on everything that goes on in the district at school committee meetings that happen twice a month. And then we, at certain periods of the time, get absorbed in the budget schedule, and there'll be additional meetings that will take place in February, March, and April to work through what one of the charges of the school committee is to develop the budget. So I think we as a committee, it's important that we have our own relationships with the superintendent, and Dr. Bucky has always been open to coming in and meeting with Dr. Bucky, talking about whatever might be on our mind, talking about whatever initiatives are going on in the district. And I don't know if you need to reinforce that, Dr. Bucky, but I think that's sort of been your approach when you came to the district last year. COVID changed that. I know we weren't really get into the face-to-face things. It was a lot of more phone calls and things like that. But I certainly appreciate that, and I look forward to being able to do that maybe a little bit more, so that we can, stay up to date with things. But I know you've always been open to the phone calls and meetings when committee members want that outside of our regular scheduled school committee meetings, because there's just so much going on.
Well, and I think rather than having a report on where he is with his goals, like for instance, the report tonight on that Dan made, even the presentation Dan made on the high school, at the end of that, Dr. Bucky might just briefly say, and this works into my goal XYZ of aligning curriculum. Like, boom, done. It doesn't need to be that we represent his goals. It's just each of these important presentations that we get from our various staff really all do work into these goals. They're not just pulled out of a hat from nowhere. So that would be helpful.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Bucky.
Thank you, John.
All right. So that leads us on to our schedule of bills. They were in our, I'm just going to continue to call it Dropbox because I can't not, but they were in our Dropbox for today. So can I get a motion to approve the identified schedule of bills totaling $2,988,679.80?
So move.
Sarah moved.
Second.
Emily second. Any questions on any of those? All right. Sarah Gold, yes. David Harris.
Yes.
Emily Barron.
Yes.
Sarah Fox.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes 4-0. All right, so that takes us on to school committee communications and discussion items. First up is the policy EBCFA face coverings discussion. I wanted this on here this evening as we approach October 1st, and that's a big milestone for DESE. Dr. Bucky gave us a memo. I'm going to turn it over to him to talk a little bit in a moment, but I just want to highlight that we have no idea what DESE is going to do. And so maybe Dr. Bucky, you can fill us in a little bit on some of the background conversations that are going on at the state level and some of the meetings, if that's appropriate. So I will let you give us your recommendation.
Sure. I think superintendents are again finding themselves in the same position that we found ourselves in August, waiting to see what DESE is going to do. The rumor is that DESE is going to extend for an additional 30 days. And so that is my recommendation this evening, is that we extend our mask mandate until November 1st. And I understand that that's not the decision that everyone wants. But as I look at our rates in town, we are in our schools, we are masked and have distance, and our numbers are increasing. We had a very disjointed month of September with 2.5-day school week, 2-day school week, 4-day school week. The more that we're in school, the increase we're seeing in the numbers. I worked with Andrew Petty at the Board of Health to run this by him. I worked with the Superintendent's Advisory and Leadership team. I reached out to our COVID coordinator, our lead nurse, former Commissioner for Public Health in the Commonwealth, and they all think that it's a prudent decision to wait the additional 30 days. I know that I've had lots of conversations with Sarah about where is the off-ramp for this? Are we going to then on November 1st say another 30 days? What are the metrics? I had a great conversation with David this afternoon about where other communities are, and you can't get on a bus, you can't get in an Uber, you can't get on an airplane, you can't go to Trader Joe's in some communities without the mask. I think if we have 4 5-day school weeks or close to that in October, and our numbers are staying similar to where they are now, then that could be the logical off-ramp that Sarah speaks of. And so my recommendation is that we extend for the additional 30 days.
No, technically we need no action, because the last line is this policy will remain in place until rescinded by the school committee. So this is more a lack of action, right? We don't need to do anything.
That's John's recommendation. So again, as John mentioned, we've had many conversations about this. This is a tough one. I think at some point we will be tasked with kind of ripping the Band-Aid off. And we know very well that in Marblehead, our numbers with vaccination rates are really good. And so assuming the state stays with that 80%, we'll have some decisions to make whenever they bring their step back on their guidance or kind of follow through with fewer mandates. And one of the things that I've thought a lot about is the idea that, and some of the reading that I've been doing is that we're never getting to zero on this. I think that was a big push in the beginning and has led to some confusion, and certainly, in the way that I've kind of processed it through in my own head, that we aren't getting to zero. And so this idea of kind of moving into an endemic that is more like, the flu season or, other, like when we were kids, like chicken pox and that type of thing. So, even when we get our littler kids to have vaccines available, we know that that's going to be a slower push. Like I mentioned earlier, our older kids are highly vaccinated. As we get younger and younger, we get a little bit fewer. And so I think we can anticipate that, although hopefully we have a really great response for the younger kids, that, we'll have even fewer than maybe what we would see at the veteran school. And so how, we can't remain masked forever. So how do we come out of this? And I think that's still a question mark, and that, certainly isn't being discussed at the highest levels of isn't being announced at the highest levels of the CDC. Hopefully it's being discussed, but, that's sort of what plays into my head is, when do these come off? At what are the markers? And when does the balance shift? So, I can certainly understand a November 1 recommendation. That's been one of the things that plays in my head, as we've, even from when DESE put their original mandate out to October 1st, my kids said, oh, well, that's not bad because we have about 2 days of school in September. So, that plays through my head, that we do have a very, especially this September, we have a very disjointed school month. So and that does cause me a little bit of concern, because I think our number one objective this year is to maintain in-person schooling. And that's, for as far as student achievement goes, that's our biggest piece. And obviously there's a lot of other things that go on, especially the social emotional piece, which is, just a hair behind that. But we know that keeping kids in person in school is a huge piece of the social emotional part of that too. So, none of these decisions are easy, but I can understand where this recommendation is coming from, and I can be behind it. David, you're unmuted. Did you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to say, I think there's also, we continue to see the reported cases that the Board of Health puts out. So that won't be available, I think, until tomorrow. or later today. Then it's posted for tomorrow, and it's gone up and it's gone down, and we haven't really reached any consistency with those numbers. But it is, I think, as you said, it's good to note the high level of vaccination in the town, not only with the students, but as a population. And if we really talk about some of those metrics, even though the active cases went up last week to 32, that it's still, 13.5 per 100,000, and the positivity rate is, 1.49%. So some of those, I agree, the old metrics or the metrics that were looked at last year, where it was if you're at 50 per 100,000 or your positivity is above 5%, then you start to get into the red zone. And we were not playing athletic events with towns that were above 5% in some of these metrics, but they do seem to be pretty stable. And then if you also look, I think this was news, it hasn't been widely reported, but DESE also asked districts to start reporting back the total numbers of cases. So you can see school wide, and you can go on and see, across Massachusetts where districts are. And it's, it's good to see that Marblehead is, last week it was reported that there were 8 cases, and only 2 staff. And so if you think that we have, I know the total number of staff is close to 600 people working in and around the district. So, that's really good to know that we have this high vaccination rate. And we've also been able to, through the use of masks, hopefully, and all of the procedures that exist in the schools, to keep people safe, that we're keeping those numbers low. So I think that's just is leading to what I hope will be a more positive trend as we go forward. So there's a lot of data out there, and this DESE report is another one. I wonder about some of the districts maybe that are reporting 0 if they just failed to get their numbers in. But I know we're making an active effort to get those numbers in too. So just another resource.
Emily?
Sorry. So I almost feel like we can't really make a decision anyway, because if the state keeps mandating it, it's just going to be like before, and it's 2 weeks till our next meeting. So we wouldn't be able to do anything until, oh no, but you can, right, I forgot. But still, it's still another week until this current mandate is on, and everything is almost week by week. I'm looking at data and what's happening. So I feel like we almost have to take it that way, week by week, and what the state's going to do. And they're obviously going to do it at the last second, and then we'll know, and then we can make our decision. So I think we have to go at it from that direction, because we don't really know enough yet. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was some of the conversation around if we were to take masks off, because if DESE sticks and does nothing, it isn't as though masks just go away. It's for the schools that have an 80% more vaccination rate, and only for vaccinated individuals. So this, they're going to have to provide, whenever they end up, following through with that piece of that guidance, they're going to have to provide, hopefully, guidance on how we're policing that as well, because that's a major thing. And I know that was a big concern, and hopefully they'll give some leeway, and not make that decision at the very last minute, which we're kind of there. But one of my thoughts in having it on tonight is that we have the discussion so that the information is out there. We know kind of where the committee's collective thoughts are, and where the districts through Dr. Bucky's collective thoughts are, so that, if DESE does one thing or the other, we aren't reactive on it, that we're, that we've sort of had these conversations, and we know sort of for people on either side of it, people know where we're headed and what the thoughts are.
Yeah, no, it's great that we're talking about it. But again, it's like, I feel like we're always waiting for something to come up from higher up to, like you said, give us guidance. And personally, I'm just like, if you ask me right now today, I would say, let's keep wearing them, but I just don't know in a week or two, is it going to feel the same way? I don't know. And so that's just what how I'm feeling right now.
Well, and depending on what Dusty says, we can revisit this at any point too. And that's an important point to make, that, if we've got this week is a full week, next week is a full week, and then we're into October. So if we get a week or two into October and Dr. Bucky is rethinking the fact that we are actually really stable, we can bring this back, and we can call a meeting to bring this back. And I think, David, you mentioned the stuff that the metrics that we were looking at last year to guide our decisions. And I think, one of the pieces, I had a conversation with a healthcare provider from Boston who works in Boston earlier this week, and they were saying that the beds at the children's hospitals are very full, that there's not a lot of room left until it reaches capacity. And we know that the regular cold and flu season is lurking. So to take masks off to them was very concerning at this point, because when we take masks off, not only do we kind of open up the COVID piece in a way that we haven't experienced before, but we also open up all of it, the cold and flus and streps and all of that. So, it's all food for thought.
So
Sarah?
I'll briefly jump in on that and reinforce it about the beds. I can tell you firsthand, it's impossible to get a bed at a children's bed at a hospital. 24-hour wait in an ER. It's impossible. And it's not that these hospitals are loaded with COVID. I'm not saying they are. There's been a lot of deferred maintenance, if you will, on a lot of things. And the wheels come off the bus at some point. There's a lot of different reasons, but the bottom line is, like Sarah said, when we're at critical capacity at Children's Hospital, at MGH, at all these places, and you're in an ER and they're calling hospital to hospital looking for a bed for you with your child, I can tell you firsthand, this is a scary time to say, we're gonna take the training wheels off, if you will. So I think that is really important, an important factor to realize in all of this.
No, and I think too, Sarah, I saw a report yesterday or earlier in the week in Worcester, where it's UMass has a hospital in Worcester, and they're understaffed by almost 400 people. They're closing St. Vincent's, and UMass is going to be, and so they were urging people, not to come to the, emergency room, but to go to some, clinics and things like that. But just the overall staffing too is creating challenges as well across the board. So, yeah.
It is scary. So, let's take it day by day. We haven't been in school for a full week until tomorrow. And which is crazy.
Is it really that next week is the first?
Oh,
this is the first full week.
It's the first full week, David.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. And so let's just, I think this was a good recommendation on John's part. And as Sarah said, at any given point, we're 48 hours of posting away from making any changes that are needed.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right, so that takes us to subcommittee and liaison updates. Who wants to, and we can kind of combine these two because we've got subcommittee meeting date discussions. Last time we had talked about everybody bringing to the table what they were going to plan to do for their regular meetings for subcommittees. So I will open it up. I know budget met this week, so maybe David, you want to kick it off with that and what day you're going to meet moving forward?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I think I know. So we met on Tuesday, and I know you were on that too, Sarah. We're going to stick with Thursdays. I think it was the second Thursday of every month that we're going to be scheduling those meetings. There was some public comment and feedback about the start time. We had originally proposed 8:15. Last week's meeting went approximately 8:15 to 9:15, about an hour. And so I haven't had a chance to follow up with Megan or Michelle or Dr. Bucky to talk about that, but we'll work through if we want to flex that start time for people that might like to at least zoom in and work on that. You know, maybe we move to 8:15, 8:30 or 8:45, but yeah, every Tuesday. And Michelle is also going to be reporting out at our next regular meeting. So I won't spend the time today, but you know, she talked about the closeout for fiscal 21, and we're in a very good place. There's still some final things to be done. It's not complete. The books aren't totally closed, but once again, I think it's consistent with the approach that we've seen since Michelle came to this district. It's thorough, it's detailed, and it's conservative, and it's setting us up for success. And so that's very positive. Secondly, she provided a review of where we stand with the grant money. And once again, we're in a good place there. And I think we can talk more about that. But the idea was, the discussion was, we should probably start putting together some sort of group, or Dr. Bucky through his administrative staff, to identify, you know, what the needs might be with the available ESSER funds. And then, as Dr. Bucky mentioned, the CARES Act group is meeting in town. So it was a very good subcommittee meeting.
Great, thank you. Facilities, you guys had said you were going to meet. Did you guys meet?
No, so I've reached out to, at our last meeting, we had gotten to a point where one of the staff, Todd, was going to like look it over and kind of prioritize some stuff. So I reached out to him via email just to touch base and make sure he has had an ample time to kind of do that, and where he is. I think the beginning of the year, in fairness to Todd, getting our buildings open, he's not underwater, but you know, under a lot of pressure. So I reached out to him and asked him for, you know, do you think you can be ready? When do you think you can be ready? Where are you at? Type of thing. That being said, I had put in that email to him and Michelle that I think once we have that feedback, it's going to be maybe 1 or 2 meetings, and then we should have a presentation ready for the school committee. So I'll keep in touch with you, Sarah, because I'd like to find a time where we don't have a super heavy agenda for me and Emily, kind of to make a short presentation and kind of give everyone where we're at and what came out of it. I think if it's not broke, don't fix it. As far as, you know, when we are meeting, that's the exact time. We'll have to do it a little bit earlier in the day because of school pickups. Mainly, that's my issue. But I think that we are doing the first Monday of the month, and that didn't conflict with other subcommittee meetings, which was good because, you know, key players like Dr. Bucky and Michelle, I think, are at many of these subcommittee meetings. So I think if we change up the schedule too much, we're going to really be fighting for their time. So I think that's where we're at, which would put us having our first meeting of this school year. I can't think of when October 1st falls, but I know it's in the next week or so.
Next Friday is the first.
Yeah, next Friday. The first Monday of the month should be the Monday after. And then we should be good to go, with the exception of any Monday holidays. That might tweak that.
Great. And then for policy, I've messed things up. We were going to meet next Tuesday, sort of in anticipation of the October 1st DESI deadline, but I end up not being able to meet next Tuesday. So we're going to push that to the Tuesday after, which then would be the first Tuesday. So, it doesn't matter to me if we go back to the final Tuesday, or if we, we can talk about it at that meeting, whether we just want to keep it at that first meeting, knowing that facilities is the Monday. That I'm not sure with you, probably what works best. And we usually meet in person at 8:15-ish, 8:15.
One thing I did want to clarify is, and I forgot, I meant to do this sooner. At one of our meetings, I had, when we were starting it, I had said, can we Michelle, make sure you hit record. And there was some concern about wishes by the committee on whether we should be recording or not recording. I think the public loves being able to kind of like click on the calendar and see the meetings. I think that's really worked wonderfully as far as keeping them informed and keeping people up to date. So I would like to be able to record the subcommittee meetings and have Emily and Lisa work their magic to connect those links. We just don't have the tech capability, or at least I don't, to live stream it on YouTube the way we do the other things. And nor do I think we really need to. If someone wants to zoom in, they can. But I'd like to make the recorded link available on the calendar to kind of look back, at least for facilities. I think facilities and budget people, are interested in. I think both of those have had the public at all of them. I don't know how much public you've had at policy, but people might be open to that as well.
Policy depends on the policy that we're talking about. There's been a little bit of public and certain policy meetings, but you know what? I can work with Stephen. Stephen and I are working on, because right now the YouTube account is under my email address for the district, and so obviously at some point in the future when I'm not on the committee, it needs to be under a more broad email address. So Stephen and I are working on that right now. So I wonder if posting that, like not live streaming, but posting those taped meetings to YouTube might be just sort of the easiest way to move that forward.
You're speaking Greek to me, so I don't.
If I can understand it, anybody can understand it.
Whatever shakes out.
All right.
And before I forget, because I do feel like I'm a little scattered, if we can get on the books, I don't think it's going to be a regular meeting, but if we can get on the books, a safety meeting, we've never had one. I think that would be great, especially where we're about to go into a new school. I think there's probably some safety pieces to that, because there's, all those various plans that get worked out, will need to be worked out for a new school.
And we can work offline on the wellness committee too. It's been a while since that one has met. The work that Megan did a couple of years back before COVID with putting the compostable trays in, we've met that. So, I think particularly given that some of those, I believe it's the ESSER funds that have designation for mental health provisions, maybe, that could be something that we check out with the wellness committee this year, kind of, do some work with. That would be great. David, building update.
Wait, can I just, before we get to because we usually end on that, because that's like our brightest spot. I did want to touch base, the schedule, the K-3 schedule committee or planning group. Nan and I have talked about that, and Nan had invited me to join that, but I didn't want to just say yes without putting that out to the committee, if everyone's comfortable with that. I'll be at K-3 for like the next decade or so, I feel like. So I'd love to be part of that planning. But I want to make sure everyone's okay with me taking that invitation.
I had suggested to Nan that you would be the committee member. I think it makes a lot of sense, since you are the only one right now that is involved in that schedule. Sometimes it works best when we're not involved in our own things, and sometimes it's best when we are. So I think this is a case where it's good that you have that piece.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I will wrap back to under correspondence. I will wrap back to the some of the facilities and MOA stuff. So I'll put a pin in that, and then we can discuss that at that point. David.
Right. So I think those of you who've attended our meetings over the last 5 years to hear David Sandin, who is our project executive with Left Field, he uses the analogy to land the plane. So to put it this way, the traffic controls calling for a final landing of the project as we head into the next couple of weeks. So plumbing, fire, electrical, and health have all signed off in the last 5 to 7 days. And tomorrow is the big day when the building commissioner will be at the school at 9 o'clock to meet with Tripp from Gilbane and John Roach for the walkthrough, and looking forward to getting our certificate of occupancy sometime tomorrow, and I'll be sure to share that with everyone. October 4th will be the substantial completion date. So the architect, Gene Raymond, will be doing a walk around, and as part of the contractual obligations to turn the school over to the town, if you will, there'll be a summary document that identifies substantial completion, and then list, you could call it a punch list, but it will be also detailed to provide the items that still need to be completed post October 4th. So we'll be looking for that to come from RDA as part of the contract agreements. We've talked about 2 moves that were worked out with Dr. Bucky and Sean and the staff, and left field coordinated to make this a smooth landing as well for teachers and staff. So the first move is going to be on October 2nd, with the idea that they've provided boxes and labels, and teachers can pack as many things as they don't need for the last week of school, I guess, right, Dr. Bucky? Right. And then those items will be picked up and moved over to the schools on that Saturday. And then the following Saturday, the 9th, will be when they come in and do the final sweep to get the teachers' items that are left and move those over to the school on the 9th. Students, as we know, will occupy the building on October 13th. Teachers and administrators will be allowed into the building starting on October 4th to start their setting up and acclimating. I will say this, with our FF&E contractor, Lord, it's been pretty impressive that not only have we been working with RDA's coordinator for all of our FF&E. There was an FF&E meeting yesterday with Dr. Bucky and staff going over everything, right down to pencils, ladles for the kitchen, you name it. They've gone through everything. There's nothing of substantial items that are missing, and those items will even be reduced further by next Wednesday when the substantial completion document is submitted. So, but kudos to everybody. But it's really neat to see that there's this level of detail that comes with this vendor, that every classroom has a document outside the room that identifies, what FF&E items go in the room. Left field has stepped up and added some additional staff to help facilitate the delivery of items that come into the school every single day, checking the boxes and coordinating all of those items. So the rooms are being set up, right, Dr. Bucky? But I mean, short of with all the new items and new furniture and things like that, technology, of course, and then the items that the teachers need to move. October 4th, the custodial crew starts full time in the building, but the custodial crew and Todd, thanks to Todd, they've been in the building for weeks now. They were in the building last week. We might think it's simple, but if you look in this building, Widger Road literally has a light switch. Well, welcome to what's called in lighting at the new school. It's the latest, greatest LED lighting, and you don't just flip the switch anymore. And in some cases, if it's designed properly, the lights will go on when you walk into the room, and the lights will go off if you're not in the room. And then if you want some variation in between, the teachers will have options. So I know I was at the school a week ago Friday when the custodians were there getting some training on the lighting, and the staff we're already getting updated with some of those technology things. So that's exciting. And then last but not least, Dr. Bucky led the ribbon cutting meeting today with a representative from the building committee, Cindy Schieffer, a Gilbane representative, a left field representative.
Abby Lewis, PTA.
Abby Lewis, exactly, and Sean Satterfield's going to be part of that. And we've selected Sunday, October 17th as the tentative date for the ribbon cutting. That will be at approximately 2:00 in the afternoon. Various events planned. We know Glover's Regiment's going to be there. Certainly involving the students of the Brown School will be a big part of this event, and engaging them in everything from cutting the ribbon to a musical presentation, everything that you could possibly want. So that pretty much is a wrap. And the last building committee before the opening will be next Thursday evening.
So David, I went by today and I saw there's, teachers were out there with Sean and they were starting to plan, various aspects of drop off and stuff. And I actually reached out to David Sandon to see if I could just drive into the parking lot and get a closer look, not get out. And so I got to do that. And it looks great. Everything has come together nice. It's having brought kids up through Lower Belb's playground and everything that we, tore down, and then driving in and seeing what my younger kids are going to have to be able to use. It's just night and day. It's really come together, and to see the excitement in my younger ones to see what they were going to get to use was really exciting too.
No doubt. And it will get, in fact, Brian Johnson with left field last week, there was a mother with two children that were on the playground during the day using it. And Brian had to go tell them, excuse me, and she's like, oh, it's such a beautiful playground. Can we go to the smaller playground down front? And Brian's like, no, not quite yet. You have to wait another couple of weeks. So you're right. It's all coming together pretty nicely, and it's going to be exciting. So mark your calendars. October 13th is just around the corner.
And what are we looking at here on the screen?
Oh, so on the screen, I just shared one photo for everybody. This is just a panoramic of the media center, which also known as the library. It is stunning, right, Dr. Bucky? The motif there of the waves and the ceiling, once again, going along with the nautical theme, they help deaden the sound. When you're in there, it's amazing how quiet it is. Well, there's no children in there, but it will help when there's lots of kids in there making noise. It will help deaden the sound. The portholes in the background that look down towards, you can see the stage through one of the windows and down into the cafetorium, the benches that they can sit in, the windows looking out into the back playground area. I think it's one of the most stunning rooms in the school, in addition to all the classrooms. So pretty exciting.
I know. I want to grab a book and sit at one of those little bench seats and read for a while.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's great.
Thanks, David. All right. Any new business? Em?
I just had a question, and I guess to put it on a agenda later, about the self-evaluations for the school committee, because I had offered to tally them, but I just never heard anything. So I don't know if Megan has said anything or just.
Megan and you were the only ones that got theirs in.
Oh.
David and Sarah and I failed. So we will have that on.
I got mine in, it was late.
Oh, okay. All right. I hadn't heard that you got yours in. So David and I are still delinquent. So we'll have that in ASAP, and we'll have it on the next agenda.
Okay. No.
It's keeping our agenda manageable tonight. So
I actually am very thankful for the manageable size of the agenda. This is definitely not new school committee business, but I thought it was a good thing. Maybe we could get it out to the community somehow. I saw WBUR was having an essay contest for any school age student, and it's called In Their Own Words. It's through October 1st. It's all about, it's a very broad theme of COVID-19, how it's affected them or any piece of that. And I've gotten a chance to read some of the submittals there, and it's all over the country they're coming in from. There some really powerful pieces, and it's a very varied formats. Like you can do poems, you can do essays, you can do whatever. But it made me think of it because we've had some really moving statements over the last year and a half from our students. And it's really pointed out how, proud we all should be of our students, that they advocate for themselves. They're very articulate. And I didn't know if there was some way to just kind of get it out there that there is this essay contest. It's always a great resume builder to get to place in one of these things. But it's WBUR, and it's called In Their Own Words.
Thanks, Sarah. Maybe we can get that up on the website somewhere. All right, so that moves us to correspondence. I have one piece of correspondence in the Dropbox, and I did get another one late today from a community member asking to have this put into the correspondence. And they talk about the face covering discussion on the agenda tonight, and that the topic, obviously generates much passion and debate within our community, and that they want everybody to be aware of the situation that has occurred over the past week in one of their children's elementary school classes when another student was diagnosed with COVID, and then making other students in class considered close contacts, and that the test and stay program through the school is working. And while it's been a bit of a disruption, that kids can't participate in after school activities still, and weekend plans, but that the impact would have been much, much greater had the students in the class not been wearing face masks at school. And so it would have created a situation where the kids would have been out in quarantine, and possibly in other classes as well. And so they, in this email are advocating for not to relinquish the masks at this point, and to prioritize the in-person learning piece. So that's that. And then the piece that was in the Dropbox was from the library. And I wanted everybody to have that. I think multiple of us were on the original email, but it was from Kimberly Grad, and it is regarding the use of the coffin school, and the possibility that as the library project that was voted through both at town meeting and then on a ballot override this past June, that the library is going to be under renovation, and that they are looking at the coffin school, the possibility of the coffin school for moving into the space, ideally early fall, even earlier if possible, with a setup and move in to take place approximately March 2022 to August 2022. So Kimberly and I, after I dropped this in, Kimberly and I asked her a few questions. I think it would be beneficial if we have them come to a meeting at some point in the future. There's a few little scheduling pieces that they're involved with right now on Thursday evenings, but I think, with enough planning, maybe late October, early November, we can work it out. And then I think that, like I said earlier, I was putting a pin in the MOA stuff and the look at the facilities and our properties generally, that it'll give us a chance to kind of start some of that work, and so that we can really, sort of know where our ducks are lining up, so that the other, areas of town that are interested in our properties and in using them, or even taking them can, so that we can actually have like an educated discussion on that. So the coffin, if the library used it, there would be some renovations that they would need to do, and some work to be done. So that's a piece to consider. But if everyone's in agreement, we'll put that on a later agenda, and have them come in and talk. I know. So to jump back to the MOA piece, because I think that's kind of going to kick things off. Megan and I are on that subcommittee. I don't remember exactly what we termed it, but we're going to work with Jackie. Jackie and I had talked a little bit about whether or not we had the MOA for the financial pieces, the budget pieces a few years ago, whether we were going to kind of scrap that and do a larger MOA, or do just another one. I think at this point we're going to push forward with another one. So we'll meet soon with Megan as well to really push that forward and then bring it to the committee as we did when it was the budget one. And we'll leave the budget one intact and then create an additional one so that it looks at facilities, buildings, and grounds within the town, and sort of so that we can, much in the way of the budget, that, you know, one piece changes and it moves other things around for everybody, that the same with facilities and kind of looking at our buildings as town buildings.
Sarah, where it made a lot of sense for Megan to be in that, as because the last one was more pertaining to budget, where this one pertains a lot more to facilities and ground. Would it make more sense for Emily or I to be your partner in that?
So I think we can leave it as a creation because it'll come to the full committee anyways. And then it'll kind of, but I think what Jackie and I were talking about is as the budget committee kind of was in the MOA, the original budget MOA, and that it would be the facilities committee that would sort of handle this MOA. That would be the point people on that.
Okay. And I'm excited to have the library come and present to us. I think it'd probably benefit all of us to do that a little bit sooner than later, as we want to kind of look ahead of what warrant articles may we be thinking of presenting, not presenting, things like that. But I do, you know, I do like the idea of being a good community partner, especially with the library, where so many of our students and quite frankly, staff benefit from that. It's such a great community resource. And it also kind of keeps that coffin building while we're figuring out what we want to do. Because I don't think that's going to be a quick answer for us. It keeps that north end of town, that piece still alive, and it's not just an empty building sitting there for that end of town that's kind of lost a great community resource when we move out of that building. So I do, you know, it's a larger discussion, but I do like the idea of being a community partner in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's, you know, there's a lot, as we saw with the electric company when they came and presented at our retreat, that there's a lot to that with all of our grounds. So, all right, great. I will work with Kimberly and we will get them on an agenda in the future, and hopefully they'll have a little bit more information. You know, they have, they're picking their people who are going to handle their architects and everything. And so, you know, a lot of the same things as what was going on with the building committee in its early stages. So they'll have more information by the time we get them on the agenda as well, and that'll be great. All right, that leads us to adjournment. So I will adjourn us at 8:56 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.